welcome to Veritas's monthly wrap-up. This time we're looking at our main topic, social health. My name's Brecht, and today I'll be taking you through, again, what we've talked about this month. We're trying to provide a brief summary around all the different elements of this topic that we've discussed and how you can use it in your everyday life. So May was all around social health. So a bit of an interesting topic, given we're a mental health organisation, we're supporting with individuals and clients with their mental health, but our social health really has a big impact on our mental health, and our mental health has a really big impact on our social health. So it is something that is of value for us to discuss, because there are certainly some ways that we can manage our social health to better impact our overall well-being. So I suppose where we're going to start, and this is where we started with the month of May, was defining what social health is, trying to educate and give that idea of what is social health, so we know what we're talking about and we can get an idea of how that is impacting our overall well-being. So social health is our ability to interact and build valuable and meaningful relationships with others. It is about being comfortable in social situations, being able to adapt to different social situations, and of course, new social situations as well. So why is social health important? Well, we know that our relationships, our interactions with society around us is really important for our mental health. And that's because our social relationships helps us to feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. It can help us to see what we're going through in life in different avenues. It can help us feel connected and cared for, and that people want to see the best for us as well. And it can also help us distract ourselves from different stressors that we have. So our social connections at home might be a valuable distraction from our stressors at work. Our social connections at work might be valuable distractions when things are getting stressful or tough at home. So our different social connections can help us to stay resilient, stay focused, stay aligned, and stay connected and well. And that is really why social health is really important, because of the crux of it. No matter whether you're extroverted, introverted, or whatever demographic you're aligned with, humans are social beings. We do want and crave that social connection. Now, the way we want that varies greatly from person to person, culture to culture, demographic to demographic. How people socially connect who are older is very different to how people are starting to socially connect now with our Gen Z and millennials, where it's a lot more social media and technology driven connection as well. But fundamentally, at the bottom of it all, whether you're a face-to-face person, someone that likes to connect through the telephone, or someone that connects virtually, it's all about feeling understood, providing support to, and of course, receiving support from those others around us in our communities. Of course, the difference now, I suppose, with millennial and Gen Z and the use of technologies is the community is not just those that live in our close proximity, not just those that we have access to face to face, but we've now got this great ability to connect with people around the world. And now our social connections aren't just driven by geography, but driven about who we feel most aligned to as well, which is great. It allows everyone to find their people as well. But I suppose, local communities sometimes suffer a little bit from that, because people are looking external to those local communities to find that connection. So it's always a balancing act, right? That's enough from me. Let's get into what we were talking about. We explain what social health is, and I explained why it's so important. But we started the month by looking at how do we know if we are socially healthy? What is social health? What are the key definers of social health? And what are we looking for effectively here as well? So the keys to identifying good social health is that we've got constructive interactions with others. That is, we're having relationships which are constructive, pro-social by that definition as well. Ones that are benefiting ourselves and, of course, benefiting others. And from that point, that they are interactions which are mutually beneficial. So I am getting something out of this relationship, and the person that I am connecting with is getting something out of the relationship as well. That is, I'm bringing something to the table. A strong and healthy social connection requires that two-way street. Otherwise, you run the risk the relationship fizzling out, and or there being a more conscious breakdown in that relationship as well. We may feel anxious meeting new people. This is skill 3 or part 3. We may feel anxious meeting new people, but we are able to constructively create new relationships as well. We are able to overcome that little bit of concern or hesitation to engage with new people that are in our community and create and form new relationships from that as well in a manner that is socially appropriate, socially constructive, and maintainable as well. And we are able to engage in new environments. So we're able to engage with new social connections, and we're able to interact with and engage with new social environments in a healthy and constructive manner. That's not to say that we enjoy every single environment that we engage in. That is not to say that we would come back to every single new social environment that we engage in, but we're able to cope with it without becoming overwhelmed, without becoming aggressive, without becoming too withdrawn, or, like I said, unable to cope with that as well. I think from this first blog, the most important thing was that social health, like any other health, is something that we can improve on. And if we don't practice it enough, is actually something we can diminish on as well. So it's what we call it state-based. That is, our social health and our state of social health is connected to how we are currently performing in this area of our lives. And just like physical health, just like mental health, there are some skills that we can practice to help enhance our state of social health as well. So this is good to understand because it means that no matter how poor you might see your social health being right now, you are able to improve that by practicing constructive skills, by keeping at it, by reflecting on your social interactions and how you could improve them. Not to get people necessarily to like you more, but maybe how you can get more out of them, how you can practice being more comfortable around new people to expand your community that's around you as well. So no matter how low down you feel your social health is, no matter how much well-being and support you feel you're getting or how little you're getting, you can improve that. But what we always got to be mindful of as well is just like our physical health, just because we went for a run once doesn't mean we're always going to be physically healthy. Just because we have one good social relationship at one point in our life doesn't mean we're going to be staying connected to our community or our social connections indefinitely. It is something that we need to be making sure we are continuously prioritizing and putting effort into as well. So going on from that as well, and a little note that I wanted to insert beyond that part of the blog as well, is that often when we're looking at social connections here at Veritas, we're working with different people, it's sometimes that we can see, or a lot of the times, sorry, we can see that people don't want to reach out to the other person, whether that be an intimate relationship or a more general social relationship. They feel the other person's not giving, therefore I'm not going to give as well. It's a little bit like a social connection or a relationship scorecard. When you're managing yourself social health and when you're wanting to engage more in your relationships, number one tool or trick is you've got to put that ego aside. You can't keep a scorecard in your social relationships. Yeah. Just because someone hasn't reached out to you, not just because someone doesn't want to reach out to mend or pass the olive branch if there's been a little bit of a breakdown in your relationship, social or intimate, doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Being the first to put that forward is not admitting defeat or guilt. It is you prioritizing and expressing the importance that this relationship has to you and that you want to continue it so that you can give to that relationship, the other person, as well as receive from it as well. So if you're feeling that some of your social relationships are starting to wane, whether they're starting to peter out, run out of momentum, or there has been some sort of conscious breakdown, don't be afraid to be the first person to put into it. Really important. As soon as scorecards start coming into it, it no longer becomes an organic relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship anymore. It's what I'm protecting myself rather than being vulnerable and giving myself to the other person as well. So this also is really important to go a little further with this as well, and we explain this in later blogs, is that there is a point in time or there is a reason to disconnect from relationships as well. And that is when it's no longer mutually beneficial. So if you're starting to see the relationship peter out and you're keeping the scorecard, I'm not going to reach out until they do, that's not a sign to disconnect the relationship. You need to be making sure that you are basing it on and whether you're going to put energy back into this relationship if you know there's mutual benefit that comes from that as well. And while ever there's mutual benefit, there's always reason to be the first one to put forward the olive branch, or be the one that's putting effort in to the relationship as well. Again, intimate or social as well. So the second blog that we moved into, or the second piece of coverage for the month, was all around our social health and our connections. So as I was mentioning, and as I went on a little bit of a tangent there before, our relationships need to be mutually beneficial. So we need to be aware of what we are bringing to our relationship as well. So the second part of social health is not just thinking about my own social health, how am I feeling and my connection to others, but how am I contributing to the social health of those around me, which is where social health differs from mental health and physical health, which are really quite innate personal journeys or personal factors of who we are. Social also is much about how we are contributing to the social health of those around us, because we can't be socially healthy if we're not being socially, or if the others around us aren't also socially healthy, because either they won't be giving into the relationship enough or receiving and feeding the relationship, and or they might be exhibiting antisocial tendencies. They might be exhibiting poor social connections, poor social skills, and that's not healthy for anyone. So there are some things that we need to own in regards to social health. The people that we are connecting with, we have an element of responsibility for their social health as well, and we need to be making sure that we're bringing constructive factors to their social health as much as we are receiving benefit from our social health as well. And this blog, it really looked at the types of support that we can offer through our social connection. So if we understand that someone's struggling, then these are the types of support that we, as a socially healthy friend or connection, should be providing. But just as well as when we're working out of a state of deficit, these are also types of support that we should be making sure that we're providing to our friends even when things aren't going poorly. Because it's not just about supporting ourselves and others when things are bad, but keeping ourselves feeling good, keeping ourselves thriving through proactively supporting each other as well. So as I read through this little list and give a definition of the different types of support that we offer through our social connections, just take a note at which you think you'll be doing really well and which ones you think you might need to be working on, and or be more conscious or feel like you struggle to work with or present. The first one is emotional support. So this is providing comfort, empathy, and being non-judgmental as well. This is that icky, soft sort of support that might, it can be a little bit awkward, particularly, or stereotypically, male and male bonding as well. Providing that emotional support can be one that we feel a little bit awkward stepping into, but displaying empathy is one of the most powerful social connections you can have. And empathy is not sympathy. Empathy is trying to put yourself into the other person's shoes to understand where they're coming from and what their experience might be like in this moment. One of the quickest ways to build empathy is honestly by asking open-ended questions in your relationships and then providing reflections back as well. So open-ended questions: who, what, where, when, and how. Reflecting is just simply summarizing and providing back to the person. It sounds like you're really struggling with this. It sounds like it's been hard to cope with this. It sounds like when X happened that this really brought about this for yourself. That's a really key way to show emotional support. Non-judgmental is about bringing that fact, even though this might be something you would cruise through, something that wouldn't bump your road at all, something you would cope with, something that's just maybe even every day. It's real for the other person. And being non-judgmental is about not going into the space of telling them whether their emotional response is right or wrong, but accepting that that is the way they are and meeting them at that point as well. So try and bring a level of non-judgmental. Whatever is happening to other people around us is what's happening. If we can display empathy, we can then support them in the pathway out. The second part of support we can do is instrumental acts. So what are those actual behaviours and acts we can do to support someone, to make things a little bit easier, to help get them started, to make things less of a bigger chunk of something to get through? The key with instrumental support is that you don't want to disempower the individual, totally take responsibility off them, because either that will create what we call helper rescuer confliction, and or you'll actually make things worse for them because they think, oh geez, my friend has had to come in and take responsibility for this, I can't handle this, I can't handle life, and they feel really quite disempowered. So instrumental support is looking about little ways you can just try and get the boulder moving for them. How can you make it a little bit easier? How can you get them started? Flowing on from that is informational support. So helping educate our friends if they're in a situation they don't know much about, if you can tell they're making assumptions or conclusions without adequate evidence. Try and provide the individual, your friend, your intimate or social friend, some informational support. Help educate, provide information. Are there some case studies or your own experiences that could help educate them on some things that would help them in this situation? There's appraisal support, which is simply being your friend's biggest fan. How can you make sure you get around them? How can you making sure you're celebrating every little victory with them? Again, this isn't just what you do when someone's struggling, but also when they're doing really well. Don't assume that because someone's doing really well, that they know they're doing well. Provide that feedback. And remember that just because someone else is succeeding doesn't have anything to do with your ability to succeed. It's no winner-loser situation. You can praise your friends when they're doing well, and that actually creates a really strong bond. If you're not praising or you look with jealousy towards another friend's success, that's not mutually beneficial. That is you wanting more out of a relationship than what you're willing to give, and that's a sign that you need to be addressing your social health and what you're bringing into this area of your life as well. Now, of course, with all these things, you've also got to be looking after yourself as well. So set up some strong boundaries. Understand, what are the signs of dependency from a friend when they're really relying on you to get them out of every single little problem they get. And understand how to be a conduit for an individual between where they are and accessing professional support. Don't take on the role of helping someone completely through with financial support, mental health support, physical support, if you're not from those industries or you don't have that training. Part of being a friend, it could just be showing the empathy and being non-judgmental enough to support them in that big step of accessing support as well. So set up some boundaries. Don't become a rescuer. Always remain helper, and remember to be a conduit towards the resources that can support your friend through. So after having a look at these two blogs where we're setting up what is social health, how do we make sure we're contributing? Of course, we need to address what happens when we realize we've got relationships which aren't benefiting our social health, which are detracting from our overall being. So effectively what to do when we've got toxic relationships in our lives. So really a toxic relationship is one that you feel and know that is costing you more than what you're getting it from. So this is really when that mutual element of the relationship is that you give but you don't receive. Either each engagement is one-sided. They talk and talk and talk, and they're not interested in your issues, they're not interested in your problems, they're not interested in you in general. The trust is gone, whether the individual has broken your confidence, eroded that trust in a way that you no longer feel like you can confide in them or share with them. Another sign of a toxic relationship is they immediately dismiss your concerns. So they come with judgment. So they come with the get over it. They come with the, I handled that easy. What are you talking about sort of thing? They don't practice the empathy and they don't practice the being with. They just dismiss. And ultimately it will lead you to feeling worse after an engagement with them rather than better. And of course, just if you feel worse just once, that's not a toxic relationship. A relationship, like always, is interacting over a repeated amount of time. Same with a toxic relationship. Not one bad experience with a relationship isn't toxic. Repeated pattern of it is toxic. So look out for those things. And if they are what is happening, then that might be when you honestly need to then address either disconnecting from the relationship through not feeding it, so not engaging with the individual anymore, and or bringing about a conscious end to it as well, which can be tough. Ending a toxic relationship isn't about doing it when you feel pleasant about doing it. It's when doing it when you know you have to do it. It's not about feeling good doing it. It's about doing what is right for yourself as well and being protective of your own social health. So then there is also what to do, with the fallout if a relationship breaks down. So, and this is where the final blog of the month, and it was where Lillian spoke about what happens when a relationship breaks down. Not necessarily when it peters out, we stop feeding it and we both go our own ways, but when there's a conscious end. Probably more frequent or renowned with ending of intimate relationships, but this does happen for social relationships as well. Whenever a relationship like this does break down, social or intimate, holding on to anger is like the old saying goes, is like trying to drink poison and thinking the other person will die, or wanting the other person to die. It's what you need to be doing when you do have a breakdown of a relationship is you need to mourn it as well. So be kind to yourself and grieve the loss of that relationship. In most cases, at some point, that relationship would have provided you some sort of support and benefit, and you're now disconnecting from that source, whether it was still there or not. And that needs to be grieved. So be kind with yourself to feel that emotion, to feel that sadness as well. Make sure you practice empathy as well. The other person, whether they behaved in a certain manner or they're the one that broke the relationship down by ending it, they had their reasons. And like I've been saying the whole way through this webinar wrap up, those reasons were real for them, whether you agree with it or not. So try to practice empathy and see where they're coming from as well. Try and get an understanding of why they made the decisions or what led to those decisions, so that you can letting go of the anger as well and understand where they're coming from. Like I said, you don't have to agree with it, but if you can understand where they're coming from, you might help you be more at peace and let go of it. And finally, as well, if you do keep a level of communication with the individual, you do feel like you truly need to communicate with them your thoughts and feelings about the breakdown of the relationship, doing it with lots of open and I-based statements. Again, a social health, social relationship, it's all subjective. What helps us, what doesn't help us, we're all different, right? So any feelings you are having come from you, so own them. No one made you feel like anything. They might have done something and you had a response to that, so you own that. When you did this, I felt like this, not you made me feel angry. It was, when you exhibited that behavior, I felt angry because that didn't display a level of respect or whatever the course might be. I was trying to make up an example on the spot there. So make sure you're doing that you're owning your part of it as well. Thank you for listening to this month's webinar. This month coming up, which is June, we are looking at will things ever return to normal? And it's timely that we're talking about this given that Melbourne's gone into another lockdown. So we're going to be looking at, the journey over the last 12 to 18 months, the journey ahead, what the new normal might look like, and how we can be supporting and continuing to support ourselves through life as it is in this moment. So thank you very much for listening. Have a terrific month, and I'll see you at the end of June. Thank you.